You've heard this story before. Artificial intelligence came for the jobs, and it won. The headlines were everywhere. The robots were faster, cheaper. They never slept, never asked for a raise, never called in sick. One by one, the humans were shown the door, and we were told this was the future, and the future was final. Except, it wasn't, because somewhere in a factory in Michigan, a car company quietly started calling those humans back. Not a few, hundreds of them, and they weren't the only ones. A bank in Australia flipped the switch on its shiny new AI, then flipped it right back. A payments giant that once bragged its AI did the work of 700 people, started hiring people again. Everything you were told about the great AI takeover was real. The layoffs happened. The machines moved in. But the part nobody put in the headline is what happened next. This is the story of the reversal. And it is not the story you think it is. Here's the myth we all swallowed. That AI walked in, replaced the workers, and the workers were never coming back. That human labor in whole categories of work was simply over. That myth is now colliding with something inconvenient: data. Over the past year, a growing list of companies have done something executives almost never do in public. They admitted they were wrong. They took people they had replaced with software and hired them back. But, and this is the whole point of the next 15 minutes, this is not a story about AI failing. That would be too easy, and it wouldn't be true. The layoffs are still happening as we speak. This is something stranger. It's a story about what AI could not do, who paid the price when companies found out, and why so many of them are trying to fix it quietly. Let's start with the company that gave the game away. Ford Motor Company had a plan, and on paper it was a good one. For years, the promise sold to every big manufacturer was the same. Let the machines handle quality control, automated inspection, AI-powered systems that could scan a vehicle, catch a defect, and flag a problem faster than any human on the line. No fatigue, no blind spots, no decades-long training required. So Ford leaned in, hard, and then they hit a wall they did not see coming. The AI could check the things it had been taught to check. But a veteran quality inspector, someone who had spent 30 years on a factory floor, knew things that had never been written down. A sound that was slightly off, a gap that was a hair too wide, the kind of judgment that lives in a person's hands and eyes and nowhere in a training dataset. That knowledge was invisible to the machine because no one had ever typed it out. And you cannot train an AI on knowledge that only exists inside a human being's experience. So Ford started bringing them back. More than 350 veteran engineers and inspectors hired, rehired, or promoted. Some of them were former employees walking back through doors they had walked out of. Now, I want to be honest with you here because this channel does not do cheap. This did not happen overnight, and it wasn't a panic. It played out over about 3 years as a slow correction. And here's the twist inside the twist. It worked. After leaning back on human expertise, Ford climbed to the top of a major quality ranking for the first time in 16 years. So if the story ended there, you might call it a happy ending. The company made a mistake, fixed it, got better. But Ford was the careful version, the version with a good outcome. The next company was not so lucky, and what they admitted is remarkable. Picture this. You call your bank. You've got a problem and you need a human. Instead, you get a voice. Calm, synthetic, endlessly patient, and completely unable to help you. This is where the story everyone knows starts to fall apart. The Commonwealth Bank of Australia is one of the largest banks in the country. Last year, it made a decision that, on a spreadsheet, looked brilliant. It laid off more than 40 customer service staff and replaced them with an AI voice bot. The math was simple. The bot costs a fraction of a salary. It works around the clock. Multiply that across a whole department, and you're looking at real money saved. There was just one problem. The bot couldn't do the job. Customers who couldn't get answers did the only thing they could do. They called back and called again. Call volumes went up, not down. The very thing the AI was supposed to reduce, it made worse. The savings on paper turned into a mess in reality. So the bank reversed the layoffs. It brought the humans back. And then it did something companies almost never do. It admitted out loud, in its own words, that it had not adequately considered all relevant business considerations when it cut those jobs. Read that again. A major bank publicly confessed it hadn't thought it through. That single sentence is the whole story in miniature. Because the promise of AI was never really about the technology. It was about a number on a spreadsheet, a projected saving that looked irresistible in a boardroom. And boardrooms, it turns out, were making decisions about human beings based on a saving that hadn't been proven yet. 40 people at one bank. But this pattern was showing up everywhere. And that's where this stops being a collection of anecdotes and starts looking like something bigger, because it wasn't just a car maker and a bank. Klarna, the buy now, pay later giant, had been one of the loudest voices in the room. It had boasted that its AI assistant was doing the work of hundreds of people. It was the poster child for the automated future. Then it started hiring humans again after admitting the AI's output was, in its own words, low quality. The poster child had quietly turned the sign around. And then there's IBM. This is the one that should make you sit up. IBM had cut thousands of jobs while pushing deeper into automation. The company practically sold the idea that AI would absorb this kind of work. And then IBM announced it would triple its entry-level hiring for roles covering, in its own framing, all the jobs we're being told AI can do. The new positions? Focused on human judgment, customer interaction, and, this part is almost poetic, oversight of the AI systems themselves. Sit with that. The humans weren't just coming back to do their old jobs. Some of them were coming back to babysit the machines that had replaced them. So now we have a car maker, a bank, a fintech, and one of the oldest technology companies on Earth, all walking back the same decision. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. And patterns have causes. So the real question is the one nobody in those boardrooms wants to answer out loud. If this many smart companies got it this wrong, what did they all miss? Here's where I have to be straight with you, because the easy version of this story is a lie. The easy version says AI failed, the humans won, it's over. That is not what the numbers say. The layoffs have not stopped. Not even close. Oracle just announced it's cutting 21,000 jobs, and admitted AI is part of the reason. Across the tech industry this year alone, more than 120,000 people have been laid off. The machines are still moving in. So this is not a victory lap for human labor. It's something more precise and more interesting. What's actually happening is a correction, a recalibration. Companies rushed in on a promise, overshot, and are now quietly walking a portion of it back. And the surveys tell you just how widespread the second-guessing has become. One report found that while 39% of business leaders had made people redundant because of AI, 55% later admitted those decisions were wrong. More than half wrong. Another survey found that 32% of hiring managers who cut a role primarily because of AI later rehired for that same or a similar position. Roughly 1 in 3 undoing their own decision. And the deepest cut of all, 56% of chief executives said that introducing AI had produced no measurable cost or revenue benefit for their companies. The saving that started this whole stampede, more than half of them never actually saw it. One forecasting firm went further, predicting that roughly half of all AI-attributed layoffs would eventually be reversed. Quietly. That word keeps coming back, doesn't it? Quietly. Because here's the uncomfortable truth underneath all of this. Announcing that you're replacing people with AI makes you look bold, modern, ahead of the curve. Admitting you were wrong and hiring them back makes you look like you didn't know what you were doing. So the layoffs came with press releases, and the reversals came with silence. The mistake was loud. The correction is a whisper. So where does that leave us? Not in a world where AI failed, and not in the world we were promised either, the one where human work simply ended. We're somewhere in between, in the messy middle where the technology is real, the hype was oversold, and the bill for that gap is being paid one rehired employee at a time. Ford found out that experience can't always be written down. A bank found out that a cheaper answer isn't always an answer at all. And an industry that moved first and thought second is now discovering, quietly, what it actually cost. The people who were told the future had no room for them are being called back. Not because anyone had a change of heart, but because the math never really worked in the first place. The machines aren't going anywhere, but neither, it turns out, are we. The only question left is which company admits it next.